Some people throw thrones like stones, thinking they'll crown themselves by crushing you. But fate has a funny way of folding their hands, because when you aim a dagger at destiny, the blade always circles back. That's how the universe works. It doesn't miss, it balances, it recalibrates, not with emotion, but with precision. This isn't superstition, it's design. Every time they mocked your silence, they unknowingly wrote their own downfall. Every seed of sabotage they planted grew into thorns. But not in your path, in theirs. While they were busy orchestrating your fall, they didn't see the trap they were building for themselves. That's the irony of karma. It arrives like a shadow and settles like a storm, especially for those who cheered too early. You weren't just a threat to them. You were a glitch in the system they thought they controlled. Your rise wasn't supposed to happen, not according to their plans. But universal alignment doesn't ask for permission. It chooses its vessels and then clears the path by exposing every pretender in your presence. And now your very existence rattles their nerves. You are the unfinished sentence in their fake stories. The energy they can't decode, the force they can't contain. So before we go deeper, like this video and subscribe, not just to support this message, but to broadcast it to every silent warrior out there who's been underestimated. Because the power of being chosen isn't just elevation, it's exposure, and your glow, that's their punishment. Before we get deeper into what you've survived and what you're about to unlock, pause for a second and do 3 things that amplify the frequency of this message. Hit that like button, subscribe so we can reach more chosen ones walking this exact path, and drop the number 88 in the comments to confirm you're not just watching, you're walking in power. Because this next part isn't for the faint of heart. It's for the ones who've crawled through fire with nothing but a vision and still refused to fold. If your soul's been aching for confirmation, this is it. Let's get started. Number 1. Stop underestimating your struggle. It was preparing you for a throne, not a breakdown. You weren't just chosen, you were constructed, thread by thread, scar by scar, every setback, a soldering flame, every betrayal, a hammer to your blueprint. This wasn't random, this wasn't luck. The universe didn't toss a coin and pick you. It designed you, piece by painful piece, to withstand storms that were meant to erase bloodlines. That's why it's been brutal. That's why everything weak had to be peeled off of you. People, beliefs, attachments, all of it. Not because you failed, but because they were never strong enough to walk with what's rising inside you. Let's be honest. That rise, it came at a price. You had to bleed for clarity. You had to grieve versions of yourself that kept peace just to feel accepted. You had to outgrow rooms that didn't even have the capacity to hold your silence, let alone your truth. And even then, even after surviving all that chaos, you still doubted yourself. Don't sugarcoat it. You questioned your strength in the dark. You wondered if maybe you were broken, if maybe they were right, if maybe the problem was you. That doubt, that wasn't yours. That was planted, designed like a virus to hijack your clarity. Because once they realized they couldn't destroy you physically, they switched tactics. They came for your mind, whispered false narratives in your lowest moments, paraded your name in rooms you didn't even know existed. They tried to twist your truth into something unbearable, not because you were wrong, but because you were right. And they knew it. They couldn't beat you with force, so they tried to confuse you into self-destruction. That was the plan, to make you walk away from yourself, to abandon your own power. But here's the twist they never expected. Even when you shattered, even when everything collapsed, something inside you refused to stay down. That unspoken force, that silent roar inside your chest, it kept rising, over and over. No explanation, no applause, just resurrection on loop. They thought you'd give up. They thought the isolation would crush you, but instead, it recalibrated you. It made you quieter, and sharper. It made you invisible and unstoppable. What they called your breaking point was actually your activation. You were never fragile. You were focused. You were being sculpted by fire into something their egos can't define and their hate can't touch. So remember this. You weren't rejected because you were too much. You were removed because the next level cannot be polluted with energies that celebrated your suffering. Your presence is a filter, your survival is a threat, and your rise, it's the consequence they never saw coming. You didn't just survive what they sent, you became the reason it all backfired. Number 2. Don't play dirty back. Elevate in silence and let their guilt collapse them. They wanted you to lose control, to swing back, to spiral, to fight fire with fire so they could finally justify their obsession. But you didn't, and that's why they're unraveling. See, when you're truly chosen, retaliation isn't your language, elevation is. You don't clap back with noise, you clap back with results. And the moment you chose to stay silent while they spun stories, that was the moment the game flipped. Your restraint was their exposure. Your calm became a mirror that forced them to look at their own chaos and guilt. It always echoes louder in silence. They wanted a war. You gave them stillness. And in that stillness, the universe got to work. Alignments shifted. People started noticing. Energies they once controlled began slipping away. The narrative they crafted cracked under the weight of your evolution. Because when you don't defend yourself, the truth defends you in ways your voice never could. Understand this. You weren't passive, you were strategic. While they scattered themselves trying to destroy your name, you rebuilt in secret, stronger, sharper, untouchable. And now, every lie they told is suffocating them, not because you exposed it, but because they can't outrun the energy they released. So no, don't stoop, don't swing, don't dirty your hands trying to dig graves for people already buried in their own guilt. Keep rising, keep evolving, because nothing crushes an enemy faster than watching you thrive in silence, while they collapse under the weight of everything they wished on you. You weren't sent here to react, you were sent here to reign. Number 3. Never trade your flame for their applause. They can't handle the fire that made you. Chosen one, you keep trying to explain the fire they tried to put out. But let's make something clear. Your glow was never up for negotiation. Stop trading it in for their approval. You weren't made to be liked. You were made to be felt. And the truth is, they don't hate the light. They hate the heat that comes with it. They wanted your shine but skipped your scars. Wanted your essence without the endurance. They copied your walk but couldn't survive your war. You think their applause means they respect you. Number. It's curiosity mixed with envy. They're clapping for a fire they secretly hope will burn out. But here's the twist. You're not a flicker. You're a furnace. You were forged in pain they pretend to understand. So stop shrinking. Stop packaging your passion in ways that make the insecure feel safe. You weren't meant to fit in rooms built to contain illusions. You were meant to ignite the truth and force every mask in that space to melt. You didn't rise just to perform. You rose because you outlived what was meant to bury you. They'll keep mimicking your moves, but never match your frequency. Why? Because they want the crown, but fear the cost. Let them. Because while they watch from the sidelines trying to steal your rhythm, you're becoming something they'll never touch. The fire itself. And no one can survive what they've never earned. Number 4. Quit asking why me. You were built for the battle they'd never survive. You weren't picked because you were prepared. You were chosen because you were capable, even if that capability had to be dragged out of you through hell. The assignment over your life required someone who could bleed without breaking, lose everything and still walk like destiny, never skipped a beat. They couldn't have survived what you did, not for a day. the attacks that haunted you at night, the betrayals that came with fake smiles, the emotional warfare dressed up as family, the constant spiritual resistance trying to suffocate your purpose. They would have folded, but you transformed in silence. You carried storms in your chest and still made space for peace. You keep thinking it's unfair, that the universe gave you too much. But hear this clearly. Too much is exactly what forges the unstoppable. Pressure made you, fire revealed you, isolation activated you. While others hid behind noise and illusion, you were busy being refined, stripped of every weakness, upgraded through every loss. So no, you weren't cursed, you were calibrated. They call it suffering, but for you, it was sculpting. And now you're walking with strength forged in dimensions they'll never access. Why me? Because only you could break the pattern and not become it. Only you could lose everything and still choose peace over revenge. That's why, never ask again. Walk like the answer is obvious, because it is. Number 5. Stop calling it burnout. It's a full system upgrade, not a breakdown. Stop mistaking the crash for weakness. What you're experiencing isn't burnout. It's a full system upgrade. Your mind, your body, your entire frequency is rejecting anything that no longer aligns with who you've become. And yes, it feels violent. It feels exhausting. But that's because you're not just healing. You're rebuilding the blueprint they tried to destroy. This isn't fatigue, it's refinement. Your body isn't failing, it's filtering. It's rejecting the noise, the fake alliances, the habits that once numbed you just enough to survive. You're being pulled out of survival mode and thrown into self-mastery. And that shift, it hurts. That's why the pressure feels unfamiliar. Because you're stepping into a version of yourself your past could never hold. You're not broken. You're becoming unrecognizable to everything that benefited from your silence. Those sudden moments where your energy crashes, that's your spirit saying, we don't belong here anymore. That disconnection you feel, it's a signal. Your old operating system can't run the new power you've accessed. And if you keep trying to shrink into what you've outgrown, it will feel like collapse. But collapse is not the end. It's the clearing. Chosen one, the assignment on your life didn't come with a pause button. It came with pressure, because pressure proves structure, and the only ones who confuse upgrades for failure are the ones who've never survived the rewiring. This isn't burnout. This is transformation. Walk through it. Don't whimper. Don't retreat. You didn't come this far just to function. You came to evolve. Number 6. Don't apologize for being unshakable. They called you the problem because you refused to fold. They couldn't shake you, so they shamed you. They couldn't break you, so they blamed you. Let that sink in. You weren't difficult. You were direct. You weren't aggressive. You were aware. And that made them uncomfortable because unshakable people expose unstable systems. Just by existing. You didn't play dumb. You didn't stay quiet. You didn't bow when the energy turned dark. And for that, they labeled you the villain in a script they wrote to protect their own weakness. But let's make something clear. You didn't come here to play along. You came to interrupt the illusion. The illusion that silence equals peace. That playing small is noble. That tolerating toxicity makes you strong. Number you shattered that lie by refusing to fold when folding was the easier path. And that's why they turned. Not because you changed, but because you stopped pretending. Your boundaries, they called them bitterness. Your distance, they called it pride. Your healing, they twisted it into ego. Why? Because your strength made their dysfunction impossible to ignore. And instead of doing the inner work, they chose to paint you as the storm. But chosen one, you don't owe anyone softness when they weaponized your peace. You don't owe them silence when they mistook your patience for weakness. You were never the problem. You were the trigger. And the fact that you're still standing, still rising, still rooted in truth, that's the proof. You didn't fold, and because of that, the entire structure around you started to collapse. Number 7. Don't just break the cycle, burn the blueprint so it can't be rebuilt. You weren't sent here to play it safe. You were sent here to disrupt, to demolish, to burn down every inherited illusion that kept generations asleep. You didn't just say no more. You made it so there was nothing left to repeat. They'll call you intense. They'll say you went too far. But only because they wanted to keep the ruins as reminders. You made sure there were no ruins left. You see, Chosen One, breaking the cycle would have still left behind a template, something for them to rebuild with. But you knew better. You knew if even one brick remained, they'd try to reassemble the lie and wear it like legacy. So you burned the map. You erased the formula. You didn't just change the rules, you deleted the entire game. That's why it hurt so much. That's why it felt like exile. You were chosen not just to survive dysfunction, but to eliminate its blueprint so the next generation doesn't inherit chains disguised as tradition. They won't thank you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But their peace will whisper your name in rooms where pain once screamed. And when they walk free, they'll never know the battle it took to make freedom feel normal. You didn't just heal. You made healing mandatory by removing every excuse to avoid it. You did the impossible and then made sure no one ever had to do it again. That's the weight of your assignment. And that's exactly why you were the only one qualified to carry it. Number 8. Let your calm be the earthquake. Their lies can't survive your peace. They expected an explosion. Instead, you gave them silence, and that's what shook them the most. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You didn't defend yourself in every room they tried to assassinate your name in. You just stood still, and the entire floor shifted. Because chosen ones don't need to shout to shake the system. You became the earthquake simply by staying calm, and it terrified them. They built lies like castles, thinking their manipulation would crown them, but they never expected your peace to be the wrecking ball. That's what they don't understand. When you've survived war, stillness is not surrender. It's strategy. You let them talk. You let them gather. You let them perform. And while they were busy orchestrating chaos, you were upgrading silently behind the scenes. What they thought was weakness was your incubation. They wanted you triggered. They needed you reactive. Because once you start explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you've already lost. But you knew better. You let your evolution do the exposure. You let your peace echo louder than their drama ever could. Now they're unraveling. Their lies don't land like they used to. Their audience is shrinking. Their energy is collapsing, because nothing exposes a fraud faster than the presence of something real. And you've become that undeniable force they can't ignore and can't shake. Stay calm. Let your silence speak. Let your aura disrupt. Because when you're truly chosen, your peace isn't passive, it's prophetic. And it always hits harder than chaos ever could. Number 9. Stop gaslighting yourself. What you felt was real, and so was the target on your back. Stop convincing yourself it wasn't that deep. Stop minimizing the storm you walked through just to make others comfortable with their silence. You didn't imagine it. They just hoped you'd question it long enough to lose your grip on the truth. Let's call it what it is, psychological warfare, and you were the target. That strange shift in energy, real. The cold stares behind fake smiles, real. The smear campaigns disguised as concern, real. The rooms you felt unwelcome in before you even spoke, real. That wasn't insecurity, that was spiritual intel. But because you're wired for depth, you kept giving people the benefit of the doubt, even when your gut was screaming, this isn't safe. Chosen One, that intuition you keep second-guessing, that's not paranoia, That's precision. You're not overreacting, you're seeing through the game, and that terrifies them. They can't control someone who won't doubt themselves, so they made you believe your knowing was delusion. They gaslit you until you started gaslighting yourself. But here's the plot twist they didn't prepare for. You're starting to remember. You're starting to see that what you sensed early on was never wrong. It was ahead of its time. You were never too sensitive. You were too accurate. And now that you've stopped silencing your own spirit just to maintain the illusion of peace, the truth is cutting louder than ever. So stop apologizing for your awareness. Start trusting it like your survival depends on it, because it did. And now that you're awake, they can't hide behind those masks anymore. Number 10. Don't dim your vision for their comfort. Mirrors don't lie, they just cut deep. Chosen one, let's tell it straight. They never asked you to tone it down because you were wrong. They asked you to dim your vision because your clarity made them squint. Your truth hit nerves. Your presence rearranged the atmosphere. You didn't walk in bragging, you walked in unbothered, and that alone shattered illusions they spent years performing. They weren't confused by you, they were convicted because you didn't play dumb, you didn't blend in, you didn't let lies breathe easy in your silence. You called out what others tiptoed around, not with volume, but with vibration, and that made you dangerous. You are a walking contradiction to their comfort zones. A mirror they didn't ask for, but couldn't avoid. And when people don't want to face themselves, they turn on the reflection. That's why they painted you as too intense, too serious, too much. Because owning your power made their performance look plastic. But here's the part you must remember. Mirrors don't lie. They just cut deep when the image doesn't match the illusion. So don't you dare shrink for people who can't handle what you carry. Your vision isn't an exaggeration, it's a forecast. And it's not your job to make others comfortable with a future they were never willing to prepare for. You weren't called to conform, you were called to confront. And if your glow exposes the cracks in their character, so be it. Because the truth doesn't adjust for comfort, and neither should you. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. Number 11. Quit trying to explain the glow. They'll never understand a light forged in darkness. Chosen one, how many times have you tried to explain what can only be experienced? How many moments have you wasted trying to give language to a frequency they were never tuned to? Stop. You weren't built for validation. You were built for transformation. And people stuck in their own shadows will never understand a glow that was earned in silence, sculpted in suffering, and activated through isolation. They don't get it, and they never will. Not because you're arrogant, not because you think you're better, but because your story is encrypted. Your energy was encrypted. Your glow didn't come from luxury. It came from crawling through mental war zones, bleeding through betrayals, and still choosing peace. You're not just lit. You are the lightning bolt that split generational darkness in half. And here's the truth. They don't want to understand. Understanding your glow would mean admitting they chose the easy road while you walked through fire. It would mean recognizing that while they mocked, you meditated. While they imitated, you integrated. And while they clung to comfort, you let everything go just to rise. So stop breaking your light into pieces just so others can swallow it. Your glow was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be felt. If they don't get it, that's the confirmation. Keep shining anyway. Because the same light they can't understand is the same force they'll never outrun. Number 12. Don't let them clone your spirit. You're the blueprint, not a costume. They didn't want to understand you. They wanted to duplicate you. But what they failed to realize is this. You were never meant to be mimicked. You're not a trend. You're not an aesthetic. You're the original blueprint, carved in pressure, activated in isolation and sealed by pain they couldn't endure even in theory. They studied your walk, tried to borrow your tone, mimicked your resilience, but collapsed under the same pressure that forged you. Because this isn't just style, this isn't just image, it's substance, and substance can't be copied. You didn't survive for applause, you survived for alignment. Every piece of your glow was earned, not filtered. Let them wear your energy like a costume. Let them mock your silence while rehearsing your essence in secret. They wanted the shine, but not the suffering. They wanted the crown, but not the war. And now they're suffocating in a frequency they were never built to hold. Because here's the truth. When you try to impersonate the chosen, you inherit the fire, but none of the protection. That's why everything in their world feels like it's glitching. That's why no matter how loud they perform, the room still echoes empty. Because energy is not a brand, it's a birthright, and yours can't be stolen. You're not just walking in purpose, you are the blueprint. And anyone trying to clone your spirit is just speeding up their own collapse. And now that truth has been laid bare, let this settle in your spirit. You didn't just survive imitation, you exposed it. The ones who tried to wear your essence are now unraveling, not because you retaliated, but because your authenticity did the work. That's the power of being chosen. Your presence alone is confrontation. So, if this message struck a chord, like this video, subscribe to help awaken more chosen ones walking this sacred path, and drop 88 in the comments to confirm you're not just watching, you're walking in power. Your journey isn't finished, it's just beginning.